Hey, this is Dan Blewett. It's Monday, November 12th, and tomorrow's the completion of 14 weeks for me post Tommy John. So I'll be visiting my doctor, Dr. Kremchek, the following Monday, so a week from today, and that'll be my 3.5 month follow-up. My interval throwing program is supposed to start at 16 weeks, and when I see him, I'll be starting my 16th week. I'm starting my 15th week right now. So I'm about to enter into phase 2. So as far as how my elbow feels and where it's progressed to at this point, right now, at pre-surgery levels of strength as far as all my forearm exercises go. So I'm curling 25 pounds, doing wrist curls for 20 reps or so. I'm doing 15 pounds reverse curls for 10 to 15 reps depending on the day. I'm doing 15 pounds or up to 25. That's a pretty simple one. As far as my radial deviation, my ulnar deviation, and my pronation, supination, I'm doing a hammer at a pretty significant, it's like a 6-pound hammer, I think, and it's a pretty significant lever arm, maybe like a foot. I'm pretty much to the bottom of the handle. So all those indicate to me that I'm about pre-surgery levels as far as that stuff. As far as gripping goes, it's not quite there. I don't match my left hand yet. I'm doing more farmer's carries now. I'm up to, since I can bicep curl 25 pounds comfortably without any problems, I'm farmer's carrying now with 25 pounds as well. So with all my different grippers, the pinch blocks, the hub, I have a 4-inch grenade ball, 3-inch grenade ball. Just doing walks 2 to 5 minutes with that stuff still, and no problems with it whatsoever. In fact, I think that some of the traction in the joint, having the joint extended and that pulling force on the joint a little bit, I think has been actually really positive. My elbow feels very good this week. Rowing, I'm up to, I think, 130 pounds now with dual arm rows, and then single arm, I'm up to 70 pounds, which isn't as relevant to the rest of the world. It's relevant to my functional trainer, my cable machine. So for everyone, that number may or may not represent much. But I've been progressing about 10 pounds a week or so. So all that stuff's been going really well. My grip strength, I don't think I'm going to be able to reach my goal of 200 pounds of squeezing pressure when I make my visit next week, but that's okay. It was a goal 10 weeks ago, and I've progressed well, but I'm not going to push to reach that goal. It's not important. It was just a milestone that I could look forward to. I'll get there at some point, as long as I continue to progressively overload my arm, but I'm not going to just go nuts for the next week trying to make that goal. That's not sensible. So as far as what I'm going to do and what I'm planning to do as far as my interval throwing program, obviously I'm not going to stray from the program whatsoever, but what I'm going to do is, since I'm not going to have access to outdoors, is it's going to be really cold here. It's the middle of November, and my facility only goes to 70 feet in our turf cages. I have 2 stalker guns. I have display boards up above them, so every throw my kids make in my Warbird Academy, it immediately gives a readout on the velocity. So basically what I'm going to do next weekend, I'm going to get some data. I'm going to have a kid come in. We're going to map out all the distances on my interval throwing program. So, 30 feet, 45, 60, 75, 90, 105, 120, 135, 150, 165, 180, etc. We're going to map out all those, and I'm going to radar gun him as he's going to throw, getting just enough juice to get it there, which is what you're supposed to do with the throwing program. And we're going to get average velocity of each of those distances. So, if I know it takes 32 miles per hour on average to throw a ball 30 feet, that's what's expected of me, is to throw it just hard enough to make it 30 feet, which is the way the throwing program works. I'm just going to go by radar gun this year, which is actually going to be much more reliable, because for me as a coach in my Warbird Academy, where we're doing basically a return to throwing program in this first month, I'm giving kids perceived effort levels, and we're doing distances. So, their first throws are 40 feet, then 50 feet, then 60 feet. Then we have perceived effort, low, long toss angles, 50%, 60%, 70%, etc. Kids just grossly overthrow their distances. And again, we have a radar gun on them for every throw as well, but they're just constantly exceeding their distances. So, and this is consistent across all of the 58 kids that I have in the program right now. I mean, I'm constantly just being a nanny about, hey, throw slower, because if you're throwing 50 miles per hour at 40 feet and 50 miles per hour at 50 feet and 50 miles per hour at 60 feet, the distances become irrelevant. They're useless. The distances are there when you're enforcing throw it just hard enough to make it that distance. That's what the distances are for. So I think it makes more sense to go with a radar gun approach because, 60 feet for me, being cautious and throwing it just hard enough, because I've been through this before, is not the same velocity as a kid who's throwing 60 feet but's throwing BBs a little bit. And so that's sort of something that's going to take a lot of coaching that, physical therapists might not be very aware of. And from one athlete to the next, 5 miles per hour is a very easy jump to make when you're just playing catch with a buddy. You might be prescribed 50 miles per hour, which is about a 75-foot throw from what I'm judging right now. Maybe you're supposed to throw, approximately 50 miles per hour at that 75 feet. You might be throwing 55. That's a 10% increase over what you're supposed to be doing. That's a significant jump off of the map of the throwing program. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get these values, this data for each of the distances, and I'm going to make sure I stick to those values within plus or minus 2 miles per hour or so, because I've been around long enough. I can regulate my body that well enough to stick 52 to 54 today. I can do that. Where some of my kids, I say, hey, stay between 50 and 53, or 62 and 64, and they have a little bit more difficult time because they're younger. They haven't been around as long. They don't know their body. They're not quite as fine-tuned with it. But that's my plan as far as the interval throwing program goes when I start phase 2 in a week or so. And to me, that makes a lot of sense, and that's much more easily trackable rather than just distances. Because again, if you're throwing, especially when you start getting farther out, when you're at 120 feet, it's really easy to just throw that thing on a nice sharp line where you might be throwing a ball that would easily carry 140 feet or 150 feet. And again, the question is that what the program is supposed to be? And the answer most people would say is no, it's not. It's supposed to just get there, so we need to have the velocity that is an indicator of just getting there. So that's what I'm planning to do. So, if I was in a California climate, I might not do that. And you also have to understand that so many people have had Tommy John and have gone through this interval throwing program before and have had success for it. The success rate is huge, despite the fact that chances are everyone's overthrowing their distances to at least some degree, based on at least what I've seen in my experience with a lot of healthy throwers. So it's sort of human nature just to pump up a little bit, and it's just having maybe less awareness than we should as how hard we're throwing when we're playing catch. So that's, I guess, sort of the big thought as far as what I'm doing as I'm going forward from here. So next week I'm going to have a big visit. I'm going to ask Dr. Kremchek a lot of questions, and we'll go from there as far as phase 2. But it's exciting to finally get out of just the pure rehab phase, get back to throwing. And I'm going to video as many of my throwing sessions as I can. Probably not in the entirety for right now, but because they're still going to be pretty mundane. But especially as we go forward, seeing the velocities on there where, I'm doing 50%, 75% off the mount, etc. We can say, all right, he's throwing 62, 64, whatever. If you have access to a radar gun, it'll be a pretty good way to measure what you're doing. So, all right, update in about a week.